Do it.
All right, so it is August 20 something 6th. This is the
No, it's the
GG
25th.
Circuit show, and here we are, still alive.
Barely. We're hanging on. We're hanging on just barely, J-Mac. What's happening to us?
I think we've reached the age threshold where we can't do 10 days of 18 hours in a row, 18-hour days for more than 7 days.
I haven't shaved since the first day of Gen Con, so I've got like a week's worth of growth going. Janine won't let me grow it out unless I color it because it's got so much gray in it now. She makes me feel like I'm an old man if I don't color it. But I'm thinking about this being the beginning of beard season for me.
Yeah,
Because it's here in Indiana, it's getting cool again. I mean, it is. It's been gorgeous the last couple days. High 70s, nighttime down into the high 50s. I think it's great weather. It's almost like fall, even though I know we'll probably get another hot spell before it's all done. But I don't know. What do you think? Beard already? Too early?
I told Mandy a couple weeks ago. I said I'm just letting this grow. I'm gonna man bun and beard bun, and
not man bun. You got to not do man bun.
She likes my gray.
Nope.
She makes me think I'm distinguished.
Oh, geez. So tired, so exhausted from Gen Con still. I'm so tired. I mean, it is. We got back Monday and finished loading. The problem is that we cannibalize our store here in Terre Haute for the show. So we all took one day off. I mean, that's all we took off was Tuesday. So after like 14 straight days of work, on Tuesday we took off just to recover. And then Wednesday we're back loading up stuff at the warehouse and bringing over stuff to the store. And so the guys have been working for 2 days. It's not done yet, like it's not back together all the way. We've got some people coming in next weekend from Arizona that are thinking about starting up a store, and they're coming to visit us. So we'll probably take them by Rick's place one of the days. We'll probably have them come over here for one of the days, and I'll just have to be like, sorry, it's still in shambles from Gen Con. We haven't recovered.
Game On events in Westfield, Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be opening.
Hashtag
what did Rick say?
Rick's place.
September 16th.
Yep, we'll see.
Gosh, that's like 3 weeks. So anyway, let's talk about Gen Con. So for anybody that doesn't know, basically the backstory to this is that, so, we've owned land centers for, we've ran land centers for 13 years. We've consulted and worked with other land centers all over the U.S. And 5 or 6 years ago, we were approached by a company to just rent some of our machines for this show in Indianapolis called Gen Con. So we sent a couple of our guys over, took over like 12 machines. It was actually for the game Heroes in New Earth. They were in a small conference room in a hotel downtown Indianapolis, which Gen Con takes over the whole city. So they don't own, but people use all of the rooms in all of the hotels for the Gen Con weekend. So that's kind of our introduction to Gen Con. The next year, Gen Con themselves came to us and said, hey, we heard you have a couple land centers around the area. We'd love to add esports and some higher level stuff. Their video game room at that point was, typical video game room at a comic convention. So you walk into a room, there may be a couple hundred people in there, but there's really just like 15 stations. They're usually fighting games, Smash Brothers, things that can all be ran offline on console, nothing with PCs. It's very rare to go to a show and see stuff with PCs. If you do go to a show with PCs, it's very limited. Like someone might run a League of Legends tournament, the Battle and Brew guys, down at Dragon Con. They'll run a League of Legends tournament, but like that's it. Like they don't have extra machines for people to play on hourly. They can't really run anything besides 1 or 2 tournaments, because they just take, 20 machines or whatever they've got available to take. So we went in the first year at Gen Con, and the first year, actually we started that first year at PopCon. Remember that? So PopCon was a brand new show. It was a few months before Gen Con. We hauled everything in. PopCon ended up with way lower numbers than they anticipated. We lost tons of money. The PopCon people felt bad. So they, covered a lot of the costs for us so that we didn't have to pay for the electricity and some other things. But We failed miserably at the first one, and then we're going into Gen Con that first year thinking, how much are we going to lose at Gen Con? We're pleasantly surprised. It was very confusing because they have a ticket system that they use. You can't take any money in our little space, so they come in with these tickets. We got it all figured out. It was successful. They, asked if we needed more space year 2, so we increased the space by 50% the second year, and then the third year we increased it another 50%. So we basically more than doubled the space in 2 years of starting at Gen Con. Along the way, we did a show over in Kansas City called Planet Comic Con. So basically these shows, we've gone in for years and tried to figure out how do we justify or pay for $10,000 to $20,000 in utilities to run these, because the internet and the electrical are so expensive at the shows. That utility cost is between $10,000 and $20,000, and then on top of that, all the cost of our staff and the cannibalization of our stores, of the equipment, and lost revenue. So eBash was not open last weekend during Gen Con. So, an average month for us is about $20,000 in sales. So we lost a weekend in a month. So we lost about $5,000 in sales from our local store. I've just struggled with it this week. So we're finalizing the numbers, and I'd be happy. And what we're going to do now on this show is we're going to share some of our numbers at Gen Con. So anybody that's out there that watches this video, this is not, anybody that knows me knows I share openly. I don't try to hide anything. I won't share anything proprietary. I won't share the arrangement that we have with Gen Con on our percentages that we share with them. But I know our gross sales for the room based on the tickets that we counted and the sponsors we had in the room. So let me just share this with everybody that's watching, and hopefully this will spark a pretty good discussion for us in our private Facebook group, because I just need some direction. I just don't know if we should still keep doing these things. With everything we have going on, I'm going to list a lot of the other stuff, and today is just my therapy session with you, J-Mac. So I'm just going to share a lot of this stuff with you. You can share your feedback from your perspective, but honestly, like, you and I need some people that are outside of the circle to kind of tell us, like, I know this is a big deal. I know this is very influential, and I know that we have a lot of insight and insider connections in the industry because of doing these shows, but they're super exhausting and they're just not that profitable. So at Gen Con, we had a couple partners come in to the room, and I won't share what we charged them, but I can give you the total amount. So we had partners come in the room and sponsors for the room of $14,000. So those were people, we didn't go pursue them. One of them's been with us forever. The other one was brand new this year. And we've got some other things of people that work with us. So we had $14,000. And again, these aren't equipment provided to us. These are checks that were written to us to be in our space and promote their games in our space. So $14,000 from sponsors. And our total ticket sales for participating in events in our room for the weekend was just shy of $34,500. So it was $34,470. So those two things together is $48,470. So in 4 days, we made $48,000. We had gross sales of $48,000, which is nice because that splits up evenly to an average of $12,000 a day we had in gross sales. Now, Thursday was smaller. Friday was a huge day. Saturday was a pretty big day. Sunday was small. So, the 4 days really weren't $12,000 a day, but just to give everybody an idea listening, that's how much our gross sales were for the event. Now, after everything shakes out, percentages shared with Gen Con, paying for all the costs and everything else, like our net profit on, and again, this is still like with a huge asterisk, our net profit on $48,000 in 4 days is about $7,000. So we have $41,000 in costs or revenue shares or however it all works out to bring in that $48,000. Now, again, that's paying all my people. That's paying all my people before the show and after the show, set up and tear down. That's buying meals for all the volunteers that helped. That's the hotel rooms from housing the guys downtown, because we literally wake up at 7 a.m. and go to bed about 1 or 2 a.m. We sleep in the hotel beds for 5 hours, and we're walking back and forth to the convention center. So all of the costs considered and everything we had to do for the show, we made $7,000 in 4 days. Now, if you did that every weekend, if you did that every weekend and you took some weekends off, let's say you really went balls to the wall and you did 2 of these a month. So, that would profit you about $15,000 a month over the course of a year. You would have a business that probably does, let's see if I can do this math. So it's 100,000, it would be doing 1.2 million a year at a profit of 30,000 times 12 is about 360. So it would be 1.2 million a year and, somewhere around $300,000 or $400,000 in profit. That's a nice business. Nobody's going to shake a stick at that business. And obviously, if you do that, and that is all you do, like if that's all you do, if literally the stuff is streamlined, it comes back on a truck, stays maybe even packed on the truck before 2 weeks later it rolls out to another show, you've got the thing streamlined. If that is a business, and you could staff it with a couple people that all they do all year long is focus on that business, and they work with sponsors and they work with marketing companies, I think you could add on another $500,000 in revenue from partners and sponsors in a space if you were running this circuit all year long. So I think you can make this into a very lucrative business. But the problem for us is that we're the esports experts on so many different things, and we have so many different people calling us, and we're working with so many different groups on different things. We can't do it all. We just can't do it all. So if we can't do it that big, is it even worth it for us to do these 1 or 2 or 3 shows a year? That's my real struggle at this point, because there's only so much time in a day. There's so many different things we have going on that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And I just don't know if it's time to kind of hang it up on some of these projects. And I'll just use our camp program as an example. At the beginning of this year, we just decided we have so much stuff going on. Our summer camp program was a great program that we built up and made us $20,000 in profit every summer. On top that, it was just extra profit for us every summer at our centers running the camp program, but it took a lot of our time. So, we're getting paid while we're doing this, so we're helping pay ourselves, and bring in profit for the company to help in other areas. But we just decided, hey, we don't have time to dedicate to the camp program. Somebody else could do it. So we sold the camp program. And I don't think you or I have regretted that, since the day we did it. It was one of those things, we couldn't have done it this year with everything else we have going on.
We've mentioned, hey, let's focus on software and that type of thing. But when having sold the camp program this summer allowed me to have a summer, and beyond having a summer allowed me to focus on a lot of things that I've been putting off or not being able to get to with ggCircuit and ggLeap. And I feel like I'm at a pretty good place right now that I'm able to, whatever the day starts, I'm able to focus on something and knock it out and keep up on social media and keep up on slider things. I still get behind now and then, but it's not as much as with the camp program, where I just kind of had to throw my arms up and say I can't do anything but focus on the camp stuff. I think even with all its benefits, I feel like the luster of the convention stuff isn't as bright for us anymore. I mean, our biggest problem is we have our team and we have to rely on volunteers. And you get what you pay for with volunteers a lot of times. And so it's...
But don't you feel like the show went pretty well this year?
Honestly, I mean, that's kind of what I mean, though, by the luster of it all is and I don't want to sound braggadocious, but we're so good at it now that that's not. That
I was not stressed. Were you ever stressed?
That it's not difficult for us now.
I don't think I was stressed at all the whole show about things working or functioning or, like we set up a massive room of nearly 300 stations in a couple days, ran it for 4 days for over 5,000 ticketed players at a convention with 60,000 people. We had tournaments going on. I mean, every single hour there were 3 or 4 tournaments starting up. And at the same time, we had virtual reality for the PlayStations. We had HTC Vives going on the racing sims. We had literally over 100 hourly seats this year with our consoles and PCs combined for players to sit down and just play casually. Like, I never once during the whole show, there was not a blip. There was not a outage. There was not a technical issue. You know, a PC now and then would need to be replaced during an event or something, but, you know, it was never, we had extras that were lined up, and like our team did a great job, you know, and again, we could do this over and over and over. Here's my problem is I just don't know, like, you know, I don't know the impact of walking away from some of these things so that we can concentrate on other things better. Like, we knew walking away from the camp program, we would still have the camp program available to us to use in our stores, but we also had made the decision to close our Indianapolis store and focus on helping other centers and working on the software. Like, we knew that running 2 stores or trying to grow and run 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 other stores was not our future. Like, we tried that for 10 plus years and we'd not made that work. What we were good at was running our single store well, and we knew what needed to be done, and we could make our software hopefully down the road do all this stuff we know it needs to do for all these other centers. Like, that's the decision we made. And I'm at that point with these shows in a very similar situation. Like, do we continue to do these when for the last, I mean, Gen Con takes a lot of my time. Like, I don't even know how much time in the 9 months leading up to it, doing the layout and working with the partners and getting the shipments in for the PCs we need, and, you know, like going back and forth with the show and getting the program guide ready and all this other stuff. And then obviously the 2 weeks, the week before and the week of Gen Con, it consumes all of us for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I don't know the exact amount of hours that it takes of my time, but I know the exact amount of hours. Those 2 weeks, we basically become, you know, pretty worthless to the outside world because we're so focused on what's happening inside that convention. So, you know, I was stepping out in the hall trying to take calls from HTC, you know, for a retail version of ggLeap to go into a bunch of stores, and I felt bad because I wasn't that focused on those calls because, you know, we're running this big show and I wanted to make sure everything was going off without a hitch at the show.
I think that the opportunity is wonderful, and I think that the challenge is wonderful for us to succeed, which majority of the years we've knocked out of the park. I just don't know if that can be recreated into a circuit where everyone is as passionate about coming in and paying hourly to game or do tournaments at enough conventions that it's worth it to us, unless there's a minimum there. You know, is there the PAXs and the San Diego Comic Cons and the bigger conventions like a Gen Con where the attendance is enough that we know most likely will, and is our location going to be good enough that we can make the profits that we do at Gen Con?
Yeah, I mean, we did Indiana Comic Con or Indiana PopCon earlier, you know, a month earlier, and it's a lot smaller show than Gen Con. You know, and I feel like we hit a pretty big percentage of those people. And again, it went off without a hitch. We had a different pricing model there. You just paid to get in the room. You didn't have to, you know, pay by the hour, and that included any tournaments you wanted to do and anything in the room. It was a whole different aspect than what we do at Gen Con. I think that model works in a lot of conventions. I know the market's there. That's part of, if it was obvious in black and white, you know, like if Gen Con was the only thing we did every year, maybe we just keep doing Gen Con and that's it. And we just know that Gen Con's what we do every year. I just don't know. The two things I'm worried about is that I think it's a very, very viable business model, but it honestly needs to be split off from everything else we do. Like, it needs to be its own standalone business that just does nothing but that. Like, right now, there should be 2 or 3 people that are planning next year's circuit out. So next year, we know we will be at, you know, February is Planet Comic Con in Kansas City. And then what are we going to, Indiana Comic Con in March, and then somewhere in April, and then somewhere in May, and then Gen Con, and then, you know, like, have all those lined out for next year, negotiate all those deals with all those conventions, and then be able to go talk to sponsors and say, listen, Coca-Cola, I'm not asking you to sponsor Gen Con. I'm asking you to sponsor these 10 events we're going to attend next year we're going to get banners made that'll go to every event, and they'll be, above the stages, and there's always going to be the Coca-Cola esports room, and you to go after a $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 sponsorship check for the whole series. And it's its own business. Like I said, who would not want to have a business that does over $1 million a year that has $300,000 in profit? Mm-hmm. Like sign me up, and especially as hot as esports is, that thing could be duplicated and triplicated many, many times. And that's why I can't walk away from it. But at the same time, I can't ignore everything else I have going on in business to be the guy that goes and takes that and runs with it. So I'm in this but I don't want to quit and just give it up completely, because obviously we've built this thing that is a fine-tuned machine that's ready to be duplicated. We just don't have time to grow it and duplicate it.
Right.
And again, it kind of goes with some of this other stuff we're going to talk about that we have going on, but it's really one of those things that I feel like, like I could pull in a 90-year-old businessman who's had successful businesses his whole life, and he would have some wisdom and insight on, without knowing what esports is and what all these other things are. I know that anybody would tell me, you've got to get rid of a lot of this extra stuff you're doing and focus on doing just a couple things extremely well. Stop trying to do everything. Stop answering every phone call that calls in and says, hey, do you know how to do this? Because my answer is always yes. Do you know how to do this? Yeah. Can you make this work and profitable? Yeah. But the answer should be no, because I've got all these other things I'm doing. I don't have time to do that. It's not that those things aren't great ideas or they won't work or they won't make money. There's just not enough of me to go around to kind of spearhead all that stuff. And that was the problem with opening extra stores for us, is that duplicating me has always been a problem. So as soon as you want to do something else, like if I spun this off and I handed it to somebody else, who's going to run with it?
True.
I don't know. Like who you post a job ad for, who's had 10 years of esports experience, who's ran big game rooms at conventions before, hardly any. Did you see the link I sent you of that other company I dug up that they provide game rooms for some of these conventions? And again, you go look at the pictures. It's just like what everybody would think of when you walk into a room. It's like a little conference room with 10 TVs and 10 Nintendos or 10 PlayStations that are not online, just playing fighting games.
Right. And
they run little tournaments and have fun or whatever, but there's not a 40-person, League of Legends bracket twice a day. They might be able to do a 20-person League of Legends thing, and that's all they could do all day. So I don't know. I'm really struggling with it. Again, we're at a tipping point, and every year it's the same way. We get to the end of the summer, we're in a financial crunch because we just spent all this money on the show, and Gen Con pays us with 90-day terms. I mean, what kind of company pays you with 90-day terms? This one does. So now for 90 days we have to wait to get our cut from them, which is ridiculous for the amount of work we do and the amount of money we spend up front. So we're going to spend 2 or 3 months trying to maintain pace on other projects, waiting on this giant check to be cut to us from Gen Con. It makes me not want to do it again. Like it literally makes me not want to have this worry every year of, hey, I got to pay all my people. Like my guys that work for me are not going to wait 90 days to get paid. I had to pay all the utilities up front. I had to pay all the expenses up front. Like none of these other people are going to wait. So luckily with our sponsors, those people paid me part up front and they'll pay me part over the next couple of weeks. So we've got some income from that. It's just it's a real weird time for me this week. A lot of it's convention hangover, being exhausted from working and sleeping very little. But, again, this other list of stuff, as I share this with you, you'll kind of get the idea. We have so many other opportunities and things going on we're trying to figure out. So let's go on to some of those, unless you got any other last-minute Gen Con thoughts. Or
Nope, I'm ready. I think
here's my frustration with Gen Con.
More of it, we just need to get it out and
right.
out in the open.
Right. My frustration with Gen Con is I don't know that Gen Con appreciates what we bring to their show. And I'm not sure anybody else we talk to about what we do truly understands what we do at a show that's different than the guys that bring out 8 Xboxes and PlayStations and play little tournaments online, because all these people want to have esports and want to have video gaming at their show, so they can tell their attendees, here's your $80 tickets and you can take your badge and go in this room and play some Street Fighter. Like they're all waiting in line for an hour to try to play a couple friendly matches or whatever. They don't understand what we do compared to, what everybody else does out there. And part of it for me is, again, I sent Gen Con a long email. I just don't feel like we're appreciated. I don't feel like we get the credit where credit's due for what we do for their show. I don't know how many other partners they have that can bring in over 5,000 ticketed players to our event out of their 60,000. Like they're giant rooms full of gamers and for Pathfinder and stuff. Like, do they have 5,000 players participate in Pathfinder events? I kind of doubt it. And it's a giant room full of players, but those players sit down for 5 to 6 hours at a time. So anyway, all right, let's talk about some other stuff. So in no particular order,
I've got to walk away for a couple minutes. Can you carry on without me?
Your dog attacking you?
No.
Is someone there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine, yeah. Okay. I think it's still going, right? So we've got 3 or 4 other things coming up, and when J-Mac gets back, we'll kind of talk about it. But basically, J-Mac and I are heading up to Canada in 2 weeks, I think it is, for the grand opening of the Esports Arena at Lambton College. Those guys flew down, checked out eBash. We've worked with them a little bit. They're running ggLeap. I believe they're doing some eBlue stuff. We'll find out a lot more when we get there on site, but that's coming up in 2 weeks. The week after that, I'm speaking at a conference for big data. I'm like the esports breakout session. I'm sure it'll be packed. Everybody loves to talk about esports and ask questions about esports. It's about 1,000 CEOs and IT professionals, managers and things that are dealing with CSM type stuff. Like, I thought originally when it was called big data, I thought it was like had to do with like throughput of bandwidth and things, but it's really about collecting data from customers and how you use that data. And again, ggLeap and ggCircuit, that's what we're all about. Maintaining those customers with coin system and reward system and having them come back and spend those things. So it should be a good conference. Still working with the Pacers on their ventures into esports. They're building their facility. They're not even sure yet what the NBA's timeline is, but they think the league is going to start in March. So before then, they've got to have a draft, and they've got to wait on NBA 2K18 to come out this fall anyway, because that's the game that they're going to be playing. I believe it comes out in September. I'd have to go look, but so we're working with them. Had a great call out of the blue last week from Madison Square Garden Ventures, who are looking to see what they can do with esports and how they can kind of get back into some esports stuff with their facility, which who knows where that will lead, but it was just an interesting tie-in because the Knicks are part of that as well.
I'm back listening in.
Yep, and then we have multiple shows now calling that know we're doing Gen Con, so we're kind of having some calls with them. The nice thing is that I'm 100% honest. Like, here's my numbers at Gen Con, and I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And, if you want us to come to your show, help me figure out how to make this model work. So that's how I'll approach it with them. We've got some more retail potential partners on the line for ggLeap. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but we're rolling out in Office Depots now. We're already in Best Buys. We're looking at doing some more with some other partners. And then another big name called us. We may be flying out to California, probably Dustin and I here in a couple weeks to do a setup for them. It's an internal corporate setup between all their offices around the world. They have gaming rooms they're building, which would be a fun one to talk about when it becomes more official. And then probably the most pressing one is some friends of ours that have been working on this forever have been trying to get into these theaters, and they finally got the first theater ready to go. And luckily for us, it's pretty close by in Peoria, so that's only, I think Peoria is maybe about 3 hours for you, J-Mac, from India, maybe about 4 hours for me from Terre Haute, but we'll be heading up there in about 3 weeks, they should be ready for us to go up and install. They're going to do a small setup. It'll be 30 stations. They're basically a theater that has 12 screens. They're emptying out one of those rooms of all the chairs and everything else, and we'll be going in and putting in tables and chairs and PCs and consoles, running ggLeap and using the big screen to kind of run as the slider and put information up on the screen to keep people engaged. It's our test into a theater conversion. There's a lot of people talked about doing it, but it'll have a lot of eyeballs on it. So again, in the grand scheme of thinking of everything we have to do, when there's possibilities for these sort of things coming up, it's probably better for us to focus our effort on those things than it is on everything else. And then again, on top of all of that, we've got ggLeap and ggCircuit with point of sale rolling out here in the next couple months this fall. First version will be done before the end of the year, hopefully. I don't know if you noticed this, JMac. I think I typed this in chat, but registrations for early access, from all over the world now has just increased. So, we've done our Pioneer program. We've got all our close friends and partners involved with that. That's kind of shut down. So now people getting involved are just joining in early access at $29.59, $99. Last I checked, we were close to averaging one new sign up a day, which is crazy. Because again, it's early access. It's not a full version. It doesn't have point of sale integrated. All signs are great pointing in that direction as far as esports, and there's no competition for us in that space. It's a 3-year project for us. We're well ahead of the game with our solution. There's other solutions out there that are fine, but we're really trying to target the startups and the new people that they don't want to have to go out and build servers and run real complicated software that they've got to figure out how to use to make everything work. So all of those things are going on. And again, this is me every day starting my morning, and things are going on, and I have phone calls all day and all these opportunities. My real struggle, and this is just, you're back, right, J-Mac?
Yes.
Or not? Okay. I can't see you still, by the way. So my real struggle with the whole concept is in all of this stuff that we're doing, I continue to spend money to pursue all these opportunities, and financially, we're still like month to month for a lot of it. A lot of people assume that with all these big things, we've got, tens of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank, and it's not that way at all. So, I'm having a real come to Jesus time this last week and over the next couple weeks of what do we do moving forward to make this venture of ours more solid and be able to pursue some of these things and be able to walk away from some of these things that we have to do out of necessities right now to pay the bills, but maybe aren't necessarily the best use of our time moving forward. I don't know. There's just so much stuff going on a day-to-day basis where who knows what phone's going to ring and who's going to call and say, hey, I heard you're the expert. That's the Madison Square Garden Ventures people. I should look. I'm going to give a shout out to this person because I have no idea who they are. So they contacted me.
Well, it's just interesting while you're looking for that, how do other businesses deal with this type of thing? You know what I mean?
I don't know though if it's that common, is it, to have this many opportunities to? I feel blessed and lucky, but it's extremely stressful because a lot of them are things that won't produce for us for a few months or 6 months or a year. That's the hard part about a lot of these things is they're not all guaranteed. So we're still working with the Pacers, and I work with them probably every other week. We have meetings and things with them, but we haven't signed any contract with them yet. We've not got anything in stone. I just know there's a potential there for a partnership that I don't want to lose. So it's almost like all of these things are in sales mode. And once we land a few of them, then that'll help maybe make our direction more evident. So I don't want to walk away and start turning some of these opportunities away, assuming other things are going to hit, because until they really hit, they're not for sure things. So yeah, the Madison Square Garden person that reached out to me, here's the first line of the email. Hi, Zach. I hope this finds you well. I received your email address from Blake Ingenthron. He mentioned you knew LAN parties better than anyone. I've gone through every single social media thing I'm on. I don't know who Blake Ingenthron is. I don't know who that is. And yet that person was was contacted by Madison Square Garden Ventures about esports, and that person then referred them to me. I don't even know where that came from. Did that person used to work at a LAN center, or, and the fact that I know LAN parties better than anyone, I mean, that kind of references back maybe to what we do at some of these other spots like Gen Con and things. So it's exciting. It's, there's a lot of potential here, but we're at this weird spot where I am I haven't done the books for eBash in 6 months, just putting it all on the table. I have no idea how we're doing. I know there's stuff I haven't paid because I'm living day to day to try to get to the next event, get to the next meeting. And I'm the guy that does the books. I need to be able to hire my accountant to be our bookkeeper. So we filed an extension on our corporate taxes, which are due September 15th. And she just called me yesterday or the day before and was like, hey, we need to get these done. And I'm like, Cindy, I'm sorry, but I haven't balanced a checkbook in 6 months. I don't have time to do it. It is probably a day or two of nobody calling me, nobody coming in my office. I don't know when that can happen, because I can't not take a phone call from Madison Square Garden Ventures or from the Peoria Theater or from the Pacers or from one of these other shows or from one of these other colleges that want us to work, or these other people that want to hire us for consulting. I can't not take those calls, because some of those things will be $5,000 or $10,000 deals, and we put that money in the bank and we spend that money on pursuing other deals, and there's enough money to pay the bills, but I know there's stuff that I'm letting slip through the cracks that are going to come back to bite me here in a few months. So I don't know what to do. I'm at this point where I have to make a decision. Do we go out and we raise money and bring in some partners? We've got some people that are interested in buying in. And again, a lot of this is really eBash and Tilt. It's not ggCircuit, ggLeap. The software side is pretty cut and dry. I mean, it is... Again, I've thought about closing all of this down, figuring a way to get out of the liabilities, whether that's bankrupt the company so that we can get out of our lease, closing down eBash. That has been something I've seriously considered in this last week or two going through Gen Con, and realizing that maybe our best impact could be just doing consulting and running the software and not physically being involved with any of these situations. I don't know. You're lucky, J-Mac, because you're literally able to be removed from a lot of this day-to-day since we closed the indie store down, other than your spurts where you've got to go help Rick with his place. And anytime you do that, you turn back into stress J-Mac mode.
Right. I can't really comment at the moment, but...
Is that your vacuuming house cleaner? Can she just not vacuum your room while we're on the call? Does she speak
anyway,
English?
Yeah, and I get that, and I'm lucky to be able to be in my own little hole, but that doesn't relieve me from the day-to-day, because I'm tackling customer calls and that type of stuff. That's my day-to-day, beyond just, I'm not sitting here just doing social media stuff every day. So is part of it that we're too nice? We can't just say no? I don't know. I think part of it is we don't ask what we're worth, and we just hope that we get enough.
Because here's part of it, is that we get inquiries for the software all the time, and it doesn't seem to then just stop at software. As much as I hate to say this out loud, but Smart Launch doesn't run a store. They don't do anything besides support their own software, and their support is terrible and everybody hates them. And we've dealt with that for years. So we go the other direction, and we feel like we need to help everybody with everything. So when someone calls and they're like, hey, I've got a problem with CC Disk, sure, we're going to try to help them with it. It's hard because we want to see them up and running and being successful, and they're going to use our software to do that. But how do we do game sharing digitally between the Xboxes? How do we get our network to perform better? What do you use for a Wi-Fi router? How do you control that? All of those things have really nothing to do with our software. They have to do with running a store, which it's just hard for me because I feel like I can not always have the answers, but I can hear them say something that I know won't work. And I can't let them go down the path of learning through failures like we've done the past 13 years. So, and we've kind of figured out how to monetize that a little bit. Like our consulting packages, I feel like are right in the right spot where they need to be, where we know how much help someone's going to need. So we know in our startup and our operational packages what we should charge to be able to help them. They value anybody. I don't think anybody we've worked with yet has had a problem with what we charge for it. I think we could charge more, but I don't want to charge more because I feel like what we're charging is perfect to help them be the most successful without spending too much money with us to just avoid and skip through the first 3 to 6 months of problems. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is just kind of getting it all out there, but you and I aren't going to have the answers. A lot of this is going to be coming from feedback when we post this into the group later and just get some feedback from a lot of the other owners out there. But I just know some of these people have run their businesses for a while. And eventually, like you've got to be able to get over that hump and feel like you're in the right place and you're focused and you have your blinders. And that's why I really am jealous of the Battle and Brew guys, because I feel like, they can control their world. They came up to help us with Gen Con. They busted ass the first 2 days during setup. Then they just went and enjoyed the show. Like they were gone from their store for 3 days and their store was fine. They've got a huge staff working in the kitchen and they're focused on all these other sources of revenue. They want to be geeky, nerdy, gamer type people, but they know who they are and they know how to be able to address that crowd in their space. I don't know. I'm jealous of what they have because they make good money. They run their stores. They run a successful business. They're looking at expanding and trying some other stuff, but they don't have to.
Well, I don't know. I look at it like this. We do all we can with the bare minimum team that we have. And we are not at the point where we can spare a new employee and train them up for support and have that one person focus all on support. And I think from both my perspective and from Ross's perspective is that, yes, we are going to help them beyond a ggLeap, ggCircuit perspective, because we never know if that customer is going to give us 5 other customers or is going to upgrade their software subscription or whatever, which is what we truly need at this point to get ahead. And so maybe one day we'll just focus on ggLeap and ggCircuit, but I don't feel like that's anytime soon until we have a buffer.
Right. I don't think we can walk away from startups wanting to get in this business and doing the consulting side. I don't think that can ever go away because they're going to need that help. And I shouldn't say that. If some other company started up with experts that could do what we do, that was not related to us at all, we would be just fine being a software company. And then those referring people to that organization is like, if you need help with procuring systems and how to set up your network and all these other questions, just call these guys. The problem is that there's no one else to send them to. And again, I think the referrals thing is big. I think a lot of these people that we've worked with get calls from other people, because I know this as eBash's owner. We get people that are like, hey, I love what you guys do. Can you help me get started? And it's very frustrating because you're busy running your own store. And why would you help somebody else, start up their store? As an independent consultant now, you've been on a lot of those email chains. It's very easy for us to say, here's our Twitch cast. It's all free. Go watch whatever you want. There's tons of info in our Twitch cast. Just watch those. If you have more questions, it's $200 for 2 hours to sit with me on the phone. If you want to go beyond that, here's our 2 consulting packages. Like, it's easy for us to draw the line. Like, we don't have time to sit and type a long email and answer all your questions about what it takes to run a LAN center. So we're providing a lot of this stuff for free through these calls every week or every other week or how often we do them. And we put all this material out there for people to watch. We're giving them these resources to watch these things and get to know the business. If you want to do your research, there's probably 20 or 30 hours of our videos that you could watch and boom, you would be caught up more than you could in anything else that you could do research-wise or anybody else you could talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right, let's move on. We'll take this.
I think at the same time, the mood of this whole show has been kind of like, damn, we're so successful that it's frustrating. And I don't want to come off like that. I want to be like,
no, it's not that at all, right?
We're thankful for all of these opportunities, but we have so many and so little people. It's difficult for us to focus.
Right, and it's a struggle to figure out the right direction on each of these opportunities. That's what the real problem for me is. How far do I pursue each one of these to the stance of writing checks to travel to places to work with them, through different things before they would agree to bring us on as consultants, like those are the lines I'm trying to figure out where to draw in the sand. So, all right, let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's talk about ggCircuit.
Yeah.
Season 6 just ended Monday. And no surprise.
Yeah. So season 6 just ended Monday. The winner of season 6 is Game Deck Cyber Cafe, and they handily won each and every week. They had at least 2 people in the top 5 of players every week. So an outstanding job by them, and it was a great season. I mean, we didn't have a lot of complaints. We didn't have a lot of this, that, and the other. They just played and scored, and they kept track, and the most awesome stuff out of the entire season was just all of the centers showing the prizes of their customers, posting them online from the prize crates that we offered up. And I think that the next season is going to be even more participation with those prize crates, and just awesome to see our stuff that we spent so much time working and shipping out, getting players excited about
that was the biggest change for sure. Yeah, that social media impact. Hopefully, the centers will be able to recognize, because a lot of them did good, and some of them they've admitted themselves that they fell behind and they did a poor job of keeping up with it. Like having those prizes to give away, having those prizes to give away every week. It shouldn't be burdensome. It shouldn't be a chore. It should be a delight, and it gives you things to talk about that are not spam advertising messages that you're always sending out. Like, you don't want to be like, come in and pay us money to play ggCircuit. You want to be like, here's this guy who won last week this prize in ggCircuit, and then the subliminal message is, come in and pay us money to try to participate and win prizes. So we gave everybody in those prize crates 8 weeks of content to produce on their social media channels. And some of them, I guarantee you, whether directly or indirectly, saw results from keeping up with that. Some of them didn't keep up with it the whole season, maybe got some benefits. Some people we sent prize crates to, I didn't see a single thing posted.
Right.
Some people got this prize crate shipped to them. I don't even know what they did with the stuff. Like, again, you could use keyboards and mice and headsets for other contests or other reasons. Heck, they could just be using them in their store, which is fine. But I'm not sure what you do with a ggCircuit Season 6 medal if you've got 8 of those, if you didn't use them to give it away for ggCircuit Season 6. Like,
some may some may have just took the savings on the equipment and added some to their store. Some centers weren't open yet, too. So some of them are going to be using them as raffles. So, all right.
Yep. Season 7 will be starting up in a few months. Like, we're not going to launch it super fast. We've got to finish up what the prize crate's going to contain. We've learned some lessons. We'll make the prize crates a little bit smaller. We won't probably do keyboards because those were gigantic and made the packages so big that the shipping costs went up, especially for international centers. We'll definitely do medals again. We'll definitely do a trophy again. Those were big hits with a lot of the places. Once we know the dates for that, we'll release it. And again, we'll need to know right away. Last time we did 35 prize crates and we sold them all. I think all but 2 of them sold like that. So we'll want to, again, make the announcements ahead of time, let people know when to prepare for that. That will be coming up, but we'll also be launching soon. Again, we'll getting back into our regular ggCircuit competitions. Whether it's the Wandemonium style or the old school LAN event Saturday, online event Sunday, we're going to really revitalize those this fall because, again, esports is hot. We all need to take advantage of it. We need to take advantage of it on a couple different levels. We need to be able to offer open events that are open to anybody to make their own teams, but we also need to stick with, and it should be easier now, to get some high school events going again. So there are colleges that are interested in using all of us to recruit high school players to their program over this next school year. So if we build it, they will come. This is a field of dreams opportunity for all of us. So we will get these things scheduled out. And Andy and I talked about this morning, J-Mac. I mean, if we have to, we'll spin off a little sub website somewhere that we can control signups and things a lot easier than through the main ggCircuit page, where we can get this information out there. We can update it easily. We can have the plugins we need to for all the different tools we need to use with WordPress. Like, you know, the example I had was just selling and taking registrations for selling the chairs for eBlue on eBash's site. Like, right. We can control that very easily on another domain. You know, if we have to keep it separate from the ggCircuit system, because, and this is, again, the technical reason is ggCircuit's getting so big and there's so many people hitting it all the time, it has to run through a special service that makes it difficult for us to develop things quickly and efficiently and get the word out. Like, it has to be scheduled months in advance to get those things done. And anybody that knows the way we operate, we like to operate a month in advance, but that would make us go 2 months in advance because we want to have a month or two of promotion before these events happen. And so what we'll be doing over the next week, hopefully by next Friday, we'll be able to announce dates coming up for all those tournaments. And we want those dates to be at least a month from then so that you've got a month to promote that first event. And we're talking League of Legends tournaments. We're talking Overwatch tournaments. We're talking Rocket League 2v2. We're talking, and again, a high school version one weekend, and the next weekend will be an open version. You know, spreading those things out a little bit. So it won't be Rocket League the first Saturday of the month and Rocket League High School the second Saturday. We'll spread those out. And that's what we're working on. So feedback, different tournaments that are big in your center that we can host online. They have to be online enabled. Smash Brothers won't work, for example. They've got to be stuff that we can either play in a WAN environment, which is all of our players and teams in one big giant bracket, or a ggCircuit LAN and then online environment. So teams and players come to your store Saturday until there's a champion. Champions come back on Sunday and play in an online bracket for the championship. And those will be, almost all of them will be money tournaments. So $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It's one fee for the center to buy in, and then it's up to the center what they want to charge locally to join.
Sweet. Okay, I've got to sign off. So any...
Yep.
Last minute things?
Nope. Ross is still pushing for PUBG servers, even though I hate them. So we'll look at doing something with PUBG as well soon. So even though I don't want to work with them because they don't want to work with us, it's like League of Legends and their League Unlocked. Yep. You know, like they're big and they're awesome and they know it, and I just hate that they win.
All right. Until next time.
All right. See you, buddy.
Bye-bye.